I've been married for about, well, a little over 10 years, and when we first got married, there was this moment, we had just moved into this little sketchy apartment, and I'm from California. By the way, my name's David. Nice to meet you. From California? Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Shh. Jokers. Shut it. So I'm from California, and we just got married, and we may be pretty upset right now. And I get it. Because the reason you came to this weekend, the reason you came to this conference, is now in another room. I guarantee you there was at least 3 men in here who were like, lunch? Like, what's going on? Yes, food is probably a reason, but also, I mean, you have all this room full of beautiful women over there, and you know, a lot of times God is tricky, dude. Like, he suckers us in, right? Pretty girl invites us to church, we're like, I'm a saint. You know, I'll be there. It's all right. But there's a very intentional reason why we are over here and the ladies are over there. Because, well, as men, it's important we gather as men. A lot of times we do these communal things, which is very good. But it's also very good to separate, just kind of talk as men. Because there's things that are intentionally different about men and intentionally different about women. Not just physically, but definitely physically. Thank God for that, right? But also emotionally, spiritually, the way we perceive things, a different mentality even. So it's important as men, if we're talking about growing as men of God, that we kind of set aside some time to intentionally look at that. And as we kind of start this men's session, I've been married for a little over 10 years. To my wife, yeah, thank you, yeah. I appreciate the vote of confidence. Awesome. You guys can't hear it back there? Okay. Who's our sound guy? Can we pump it up back there? Awesome. Check. Whoa. Moses.
Can you hear back there?
Is that okay? Right. Yeah, I feel like I'm going to blow you away. All right. Well, we'll go with it, all right? If you guys leave here bleeding from the ears, just consider that like a gift from God. I don't know how else to interpret that. I've been married for about, well, a little over 10 years, and when we first got married, there was this moment, we had just moved into this little sketchy apartment, and I'm from California. By the way, my name's David. Nice to meet you. From California? Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Shh. Jokers. Shut it. So I'm from California, and we just got married, and we moved to this sketchy little apartment in Huntington Beach. And it was kind of like this, like a 4 small apartments, like not like a big building, but just kind of next to each other. And I had this moment. It was the first time I recognized having this moment. Maybe you've had that moment where you're like when it's happening, this is it. Like, this is the test. Like, this is when a boy becomes a man. You mean this is that moment where something is accusing me, something's coming against me, and I gotta rise to the challenge. Like if this is the movie Rudy, any of you seen the movie Rudy? Please tell me you've seen the movie Rudy, right? Yeah, like this is the moment where he's just like, you're gonna run out of the tunnel. You know, like this moment's happening in my life, and here's how it went down. It was like, I was in the living room, maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning or so. I'm a graphic designer, and I was working on the computer, which is sitting in the living room, and I got to paint a little picture here for you so you can understand this, because it's very important. So if this is my house, oddly enough, the stage is about twice the size as my house. Housing in California is very expensive. And so if this is my house right here, we'll say like this right here, you with me, is a front door. Can you use your imaginations? Yeah. Awesome, good. Front door. So you open the front door, and immediately outside the front door right here would be about a 7-foot-high wooden fence. Okay? So you would open the door, step out, pull the lever to open a wooden fence to step out into the driveway. You with me? Very important, okay? Sketchy area of Huntington Beach, that wooden fence was very important so no one could just be right up on your door. If you were coming into the house, oddly enough, we had a little string hanging over the fence. You pull the string, the gate would open, you could walk in front door. With me? Good. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm in the living room a couple feet away from the front door, working on design, and I hear something. And like it wasn't just my stomach rumbling, like it wasn't gas. Like I heard something at my door, some sort of like chipping kind of sound. And I got up and it's like, I kind of lean against the door and I hear this like kind of going at my door. It's like, this is it. It's going down. There's an intruder. My home is being intruded upon. I'm not sure if I used that correctly. Whatever, there's a burglar. And so, one in the morning, I kind of creep to the door, and like I kind of play with the door handle slowly, like get my courage up. I'm like, if I open this, and I see some dude break into my, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, I have to do it. So like, I open the door, and sure enough, when I open the door, I see reaching over the fence, this white crowbar, like towards my door. And all I can think to do is to slam the door, jump back, and I yell, mother, French fries. Mother, French fries everywhere. I went to confession, okay, but like I just this visceral gut reaction of just to yell these curse words at the door. I jump back, I shout it, French fry, mother, French fry. And my next bright thought was to defend myself. So I reach over to the counter in my kitchen where we have this block of wood that has a bunch of knives in it. Yeah, right? I'm not dumb. So I reach over and I grab the knife sharpener. You ever seen a knife sharpener? It's just like a round thing. It's kind of like soft and you sharpen knives with it. I didn't pay attention when I was grabbing. I grabbed the knife sharpener. And in the meantime, my wife, who was sound asleep like a princess down the hallway in our room, heard me and my vulgar words, and she jumps up. And I'm going back to the front door with my knife sharpener, and she's like, David! It's not really what she sounds like, but that's the best I can do. And David, what's going on? My wife sounds annoying when I do that. She's not annoying, just my impression of her is annoying. Anyway, she's like, what's going on? And I was like, call the cops, I'm defending your honor. She's like, what? I was like, someone's breaking in. Go, now. I am the king of this castle. I am the ruler of my domain. You are my princess. Run to the castle, now. So I hopped on my horse. I didn't really have a horse, but like, I go to the door, and I have my knife sharpener, and I was like, man, he is going to be, I am at least going to file his nails down so bad. So badly. And all I do, like, I swing open the door, and I kind of do this. I just kind of reached around and swung around the sharpener for a bit. And like I didn't get attacked. So I stood back, I kind of pulled the door all the way open, and no one was there. I was like, damn right no one was there. But it could have been beyond the fence. So I did the same thing. I pulled the latch, the fence opens, and I began swinging the knife sharpener around, wielding it like it was my destiny. No one was there. I walk out into my driveway, feeling pretty victorious. And then I thought, the perpetrator's underneath my truck. Oh, you can't outsmart me. So I do this like sweet, like. For those of you who couldn't see to the back, it was awesome. It was amazing. I dropped to the ground and I did this like windmill kick and I swung the sharpener around underneath the truck. And he wasn't there. If he was, he would have been dead. He probably would have just been obliterated, like in nothingness. No one was there. So there I am standing victoriously in my driveway, wearing pajamas, dirty white tank top, and holding my knife sharpener. And then the cops come up, because my wife had called them. And the officer gets out of the car with his hand on his gun, and he's like, put the weapon down. I was like, it's actually not a weapon, like it's a knife sharpener. He's like, put it down. I was like, all right, like it's okay. This is like, I live here. My wife's here. This is my castle, okay? You're welcome to cross the moat and come into my castle, but you're gonna do it with some respect. He's like, you're an idiot. I was like, you're right. So he comes up, and the officer is just kind of like, what happened? And I was like, well, let me tell you what happened. About 1 a.m., perpetrator approached my door, began to try to pry open my door with a crowbar, a white crowbar. And the officer's eyebrow kind of raises. A white crowbar. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he painted it white. Maybe I matched his iPhone case. I don't know, but a white crowbar was attacking my door. I said, okay. I said, and then what happened? I said, well, in a rage of fury, I unleashed upon him all that is manly, and the perpetrator fled into the depths of the night, officer. He goes, really? I go, yep, that's how it went down. He goes, oh, you did good. I was like, I know. He goes, just out of curiosity, David, do you guys by chance have any cats in the neighborhood? I was insulted. No. And right at that moment, the neighbor's cat comes out from underneath my truck. Beautiful, beautiful black cat with a giant white tail. The officer just looks at me and goes, you did good. Gave me a little sticker that you give a little kindergarten kid, you know, a little sticker badge. We're going to leave now. You should leave now. I'm going to go cry to sleep. It's like, you should. What happened was, it was literally the neighbor's cat was climbing up the fence, and the nails were plucking out the wood because it's like old rotten wood. I thought I heard that sound of a crowbar. When I opened the fence, it was already going over the fence. All I saw was its white tail, and in a flash of it, I thought it was a white crowbar. And so the moral of the story is, don't cuss out kittens. But I felt like my one moment where I was like, this is it. Like, I have the courage. I'm going to defend my wife. I'm going to lay down my life. I cussed out a cat. I don't know if that was the manliest moment, but I'll tell you, in that moment, I felt like a man. Like, not that I necessarily won the fight or beat the cat, but like, I had the courage to go up against what I thought was someone coming to cause some harm to my wife, to my family. And so I think as men, it's important that we start to look at ourselves and ask, what is it that makes a man? I want you to think about that question real quick. What is it that makes a man? Once you have a thought, an answer, raise your hand, please. Shout it out. What do you got?
When they're 21, crazy.
When they're 21, right? You know, good. So going to society, there's a number, right? There's an age, 18 or 21, and then you become a man. Perfect. Good answer. What else? What else makes a man? What does the world say makes a man? Yeah. Taking care of responsibilities? Absolutely. Yeah.
Muscles.
Muscles. Okay. Well, I'm out. Yep. Maturity. Well, I'm out again. All right. What else?
Facial hair.
A Y chromosome, right? Like DNA, genetically. Absolutely. Yeah, right there. Being able to support your family. Absolutely. Now, I want to skew the question just a little bit. These are really good answers, but I want you to think outside of this room. Like when you were in your day-to-day kind of life in school or in work, or maybe on your sports team, or maybe in the music and the movies and the TV you guys watch, what do you think society says a man should look like? That a man should desire, that a man should want? What does society tell you a man should be? In the very far back, yell it nice and loud. I heard buy pants. Someone a little bit closer. What does society say? Yeah. Telling the truth, paying taxes. Good. What else? What? Make a living. Good. What else does society say? Yeah. Classy. Okay, good. What else? Yep.
Get a hot wife.
Got to get a hot wife, right? I didn't even take that. I don't even know if society even says you got to get married, right? Society says just have a hot woman. No, actually they do say women, right? They're like, whatever woman you want, right? Multiple women, go from bounce to bounce, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? Society says that's what a man is, right? Someone who can just go get the ladies, right? What else does society say? You said muscles? No, you said muscles. You said muscles. I'm offended, but I get it. Like, society says that, right? You got to have this power, right? I mean, look like any major, like, movie star or musician, right? They're like, like inhumanly ripped. You know what I mean? Like they could bench press a car while singing. It's ridiculous. Right? Society says that. So really what makes a man, according to society's idea, it kind of revolves around these three things. Sex, money, and power. Right? Money. Doesn't society say, you know what? Real men have money. Right? To buy whatever they want, to buy the sports car. Listen to any major rap song, and like 80% of the lyrics are about money. Making money, having money, whatever. It's taking money, right? Whatever it is. Anything that falls under possessions. And then we have this idea of power, right? That you can actually crush someone underneath you. That you are that powerful. I think if we're honest and we look at all of our different movies and music and just kind of the culture we swim in, we'll see that society's pressing upon those things. That to be a real man, you have to be obsessed or engulfed or in the pursuit of sex, money, and power. Now notice, none of those things are actually bad on their own. But society, in the way they kind of skew it, says that what makes a real man is to possess those, to make your life about that. I was at the airport yesterday, and I heard this guy behind me talking. He was a club promoter. And he's talking to this other guy, and all he's doing is bragging about how much money he has, and that he's a self-made man, that no one gave it to him. He went out there and earned it himself. And he has all this money, and because of all this money, all these women. This is what society says a man is. Now, on the other hand, if we look at the church, or how about this? What we think the church says a man is. Any of you guys know who the Simpsons are? Do you guys? I know it's kind of older, so I won't even reference it. But for those of you who do know the Simpsons, you know Ned Flanders? Yeah. Right? Exactly. That's kind of what society says a Christian man is. Is someone who's like well-behaved, clean-cut, shirt tucked in, polite, doesn't raise his voice. Right, his grass is cut to like 3 inches. Right? Isn't this so? If you think about it, isn't this sometimes what we think that God and the church say a real man, Christian man is? That somehow a Christian man is kind of this neutered version of a man. And we kind of fall for this lie. That to be a church man or a church boy, whatever you want to say, that somehow you have to kind of lose a lot of what you feel in your heart. That you become this kind of cookie-cutter, well-behaved, plastic-looking saint. And let's be honest real quick. If on one hand we have this idea of what culture says a man is, right? I don't know, someone like Jay-Z or Drake or whoever you want to put in there, right? The whip, he's like, watch me whip. This is like my brain. And he braids this whip, however long it took him, and he goes over to drive these people out of the temple. There was something in Jesus that when it faced injustice, there was a conviction in him. Not the shell of a man, but the authentic power of a man that wouldn't use power simply for his own good, but would use power for the greater good. Literally stood up against society and culture. And yet the same Jesus, who when the woman was caught in adultery, when all of society was gathered around her ready to stone her to death because of her sins, which would have been lawful, legal. She was a sinner, caught in the act of adultery. Death was the punishment. Yet Jesus steps in against the society and their idea of the law. The same man who drove people out in righteousness now bends down in mercy to a woman that every other person around her refused to acknowledge as dignity and worth and value, and bends down, looks her in the eye, and offers her grace and love. And as he did that, he stood against society in the process. He didn't buckle to the pressures of society. He didn't give in to the conformity of what society says a man is. He was the authentic man. And you know what Jesus did? In his power, he ended up giving rather than taking. We're going to get to that in a minute, but I want you to think about that. In his power, he ended up giving rather than taking. Now, here's the thing. If we talk about man's idea, world's idea of manhood, right? Sex, money, power, everything that would fall under that. I think we'd all agree at some point in our life we've pursued one of those things or some sort of variation of those things. I'm not going to make you raise your hand because I don't need to. We all have. We're fallen, broken men. I know in one way or another, we pursued this idea of sex in lust or pornography or with relationship with a girl, relationship with a guy, a relationship that is somehow outside of the context of marriage. We've taken our power and distorted it. Or maybe we think that, you know what, like money is what I need, money is my security, and so I'm going to walk all over whoever I can to get to that money. Or I'm going to sacrifice time with my family to get to that money. I'm going to sacrifice what's right and what's good in order to get to that money. In one way or another, we've all chased something. And I think if we're honest, we'd all admit that we ended up, that after we've chased that thing, whatever that thing was, we ended up still thirsty and empty inside. I know for any of you that maybe have struggled with pornography, I know that in that moment, once it passes, the last thing you feel about yourself is good. I know that. I've lived through that. I know the self-hatred and the emptiness that fills my soul when I chase down something I think I'm thirsting for. And the reality is we all end up still thirsty, still longing, still hungry for something greater than what we thought would fill our masculine hearts. And as a result of that, we end up broken, discouraged, and depressed. And then we create generations that follow us who don't know how to be authentic men because we haven't ourselves learned how to be authentic men. That's not exactly your fault. This is the society we're born into. Right now, one of the greatest problems in the church is the lack of authentic manhood. One of the greatest problems in society is the lack of authentic manhood. Take any major problem in society, and I guarantee you one of the factors of it being in existence is that there is a lack of manhood in that moment. Why is abortion raging through our country? Millions of babies legally killed. Because at the core of it, you have a man who did not step up to be a man. A man who actually took from the woman rather than sacrificed himself to preserve her dignity. You maybe have a man who didn't step up to be the father that baby needed. And so that mom, out of fear, felt she had no place to turn. And I'm not like saying this to like get down on us. I'm saying this is the reality of the world we live in. And a lot of the world's problems, and a lot of the church's problems, are because there are not enough men who are striving to be authentic men. Men after Christ's heart. Men that often, through no fault of their own, are just following the ways of the world because that's all we know. And the beautiful thing is these conferences, these moments, your youth ministries, your priests, your leaders have brought us to this point so that we can be honest with each other and look each other in the eyes and say, you were made for something greater than what you're settling for. Listen to that. Look me in the eye. Pope Benedict. You heard this last night, but I want you to hear it again. And don't just hear it as a quote. I want you to hear it as a call on your life. I want you to hear it as him speaking to you. You. Not a room full of men, but you. And he looks you in the eye, and with the power of the Holy Spirit, he says, you were not made for comfort. You were made for greatness. Do you hear that, men? You weren't made for comfort. And that's all the world and their view of a man is going to offer you. Comfort, complacency, mediocrity, self-preservation. But you weren't made for comfort or for complacency or for mediocrity or for self-preservation. You were made for greatness. And I know that you were made for greatness. This is why when you see movies like Rudy, when he runs out of that tunnel, even the manliest of men will fight a tear coming down their eye. Because you have this man who by the world's standards had nothing to offer. He was weak, insignificant, pathetic. But he had a heart in him that strived and thirsted for greatness. And that striving, that thirsting, propelled him to fight beyond his own comfort, beyond his own strength, to press on when he felt like giving up. And when we see that in other people, we get inspired because it's calling to our hearts. Every major movie that has moved your heart in some way. If you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, you watch it and man, like something in that moves me. Gladiator, something in that moves me. Any of the Rocky movies. Something in that moves me. Have you never been moved by a moment of heroism? I bet you have. Because what's moving in you is your own thirst for greatness. And when you see an example of it, it rises, it stirs, it bubbles. It says, yes, that hunger pain is felt. You were made for greatness. And the world offers you a false imitation version of your manhood. And the world wants you to believe that a church's version of your manhood is this empty shell of a man. No emotions, no passion, just well-behaved. But Jesus Christ says, no, like I have made you wild and fierce in my image. In Genesis, we see this amazing moment where God steps down to create mankind. And I want you to see this. He says, God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Do you see that distinction? Male and female, he created them. You are intentionally a man. It's not an accident. It's not a coincidence. And the world is going to try to tell you that your manhood is optional. And what you do with your manhood is optional. Do with whatever you want. But God says, no, no, no. Like I've given you an authentic masculine heart. I've given you a masculine soul. There is something about you as men that reveal God in a way the women can't reveal God. And there is a way that the women reveal God that we can't reveal God. But in our complementary factor, in the fact that men and women were both created equal but different. Equal but different. They were created good to reveal something about something about God to the world. Raise your hand real quick. How many of you, when you were a kid, if you saw a stick lying on the ground, that stick was immediately a sword? Right? Well, anything will turn into a sword. Be honest. How many of you, when you go to the bathroom, you pee and you play lightsaber, right? I know, like it just happens, right? And then we see, check this out. See, we're men. Here's the thing. Listen, hey guys, get over the image of you peeing. Move on. Shh. There's something about men. Like that a stick can turn into a sword immediately. No one has to teach you that. There's something in our hearts that distinctly want to use our power to go into battle. The problem is the world says use your power to dominate for your own good, for your own self-preservation. But God says, no, I've created something in you that wants that battle, but for self-donation, for a giving of your life for someone else's. And that battle doesn't have to rage only in a physical sense. It rages in an emotional sense, in a mental sense, in a spiritual sense. When you walk in and your mom is having a horrible day and you don't have the patience for it, no, you go to battle with your attitude in that moment and you lay yourselves down for the dignity of your mom. When you walk in and you know there's a girl who's maybe insecure, and so she's willing to do whatever with whoever just because she wants to hear that she's loved. And you feel tempted to meet her in that moment. No, you go to battle with yourself in that moment. And you crucify that flesh with Christ. And you let your spirit rise. And you proclaim the dignity of that daughter. You see, my main man Spider-Man once said, with great power comes great responsibility. And you, as men, reveal a certain aspect of God's nature. The fact that you and I want our power, and as infants just to run into battle, shows that God is a warrior God. He is a God who will fight for his children. He is a God who will fight for his bride, the church. He is a God who will not run away. He is a God who will not hide. He is a God that climbed out of heaven to earth and took on a cross to die for his beloved. Your heart actually reveals that to the world. Your masculine heart reveals a masculine aspect of who God is to the world. And the world needs to see that. The world needs to see the man you were created to be. You and I need to be the men we're created to be. Because that's when we'll be fully alive. That's when these women will actually have the freedom just to be the women God created them to be. They can be free not to have to dress a certain way, not have to act a certain way, not to have to try to step in and fill roles that men have failed to fill. And this is what we've been called to. There's this crazy thing in the book of Jeremiah. I think we have a slide on that. This is God speaking to his people. He says, 2 evils my people have done. They have forsaken me, the source of living waters. They have dug themselves cisterns, broken cisterns that cannot hold water. The reality is that thirst you have for greatness, it's a good thing. It's a God-given thing. The problem is sometimes in our own sin and our own fall and of our own lack of examples of authentic manhood, we don't know where to take that thirst for greatness. And so we take it to what the world offers us. And Jesus says 2 evils that we've done. The first, they have forsaken me, the source of living waters. Do you notice that? Like Jesus says, this evil you've done isn't even simply well, you've turned away from me or you've done this checklist of sins. He says the evil is you've turned away from me because I am your living water. He's more concerned that we are hydrated with authentic life. And he says when we refuse to drink of that authentic life, then it becomes an evil act. Because we take that thirst to anything that will not satiate it. And he says when we don't turn to him for this living water, for this idea of masculinity, we end up digging cisterns for ourselves. Every attempt to try to fill this ache in our heart for authentic manhood. This ache in our heart with our power. And we just end up digging these cisterns that will never satiate us. Never quench our thirsts. I live pretty close to the beach. And if you ever go to the beach and it gets hot and you're thirsty and you're in the water, you have this inclination of, I'm just floating in water. Why don't I just take a drink? You know what happens if you drink salt water? You get dehydrated. Did you hear that? If you drink salt water, you get dehydrated. Though it has this appearance of just fresh water that you feel you're craving, that you're thirsting for, if you were to actually drink it, it's harmful to your body and you get dehydrated. Because your body can't process the ratio of salt to water that you're drinking. And so it uses excess water in your body to process that. And you become dehydrated. Is this not what we are doing so often with our thirst for masculinity, our thirst for greatness? We go to these things that we think will fill us, that we think will quench our thirst, but in reality, it's destroying us. How many times do we go back to that computer screen? Back to that image, and it destroys us? How many times do we think we go back to these different circumstances, friendships, relationships, whatever it is, popularity, athleticism, money, success, whatever it is, because we have this thirst for greatness, but ultimately in the end, we're left hungry. We're left thirsty. Not only have we dug wells that will never fill us, we've turned away from the one God who will. But the good news is, brothers, Jesus Christ says, I'm the living water. You don't have to thirst anymore. You can take this thirst, this desire for greatness, and you can turn it to me, and you can drink of my living water, and you can live a life of greatness. These addictions you struggle with, the fact that you hate, that day after day it seems you sink into pornography, through Jesus Christ you don't have to do that. The shame and guilt you feel for what you've done with that person, you don't have to live in that shame and that guilt. The fact that you keep turning back to drugs or to alcohol because you don't know how to take this unrest or this hurt from your parents splitting up, you don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to resort to that broken cistern. Our God has come to heal us with his living water. And there's this amazing story in Scripture. It's called the paralytic man. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to paraphrase it, but I encourage you to go look this up. It's in Mark chapter 2, around verse 3. And in this story, Jesus goes into this house, and people had heard about Jesus. They didn't necessarily know him, but they heard that he says some crazy things and he's done some crazy stuff. And so they fill this house. It says you can't even get in the house. It's so crowded. And Jesus begins to speak to them. And outside the house, there are 4 men who have a friend. And this 5th man, their friend, is completely paralyzed. He's paralyzed and he can't move. Stuck in his own body. And so these 4 men, out of their love for him and their concern for him, take this man and they carry him on a mat up to the door in hopes to bring him to Jesus. And they can't get in. It's so crowded. So what do these men do? They give up and they go home. No, that's not how the story goes. They don't give up and they don't go home. That's when society would say, hey, you gave it a college effort, whatever, go back home and just kind of look out for yourself from now on. No, these men climb up to the top of the house. And these men begin to rip open the roof of the house. No regard for whose house it is. No regard for what people are going to think about them. The only thing that they care about is that this man, their brother, needs to get to Christ. And they rip open the roof and they lower this man down into the presence of Jesus. And Jesus stops. And he says to this man, your sins are forgiven. And you stop right there and the crowd kind of mumbles. Wait. Because I mean, you see this crippled man being lowered down. And you're like, obviously he wants to be healed. And you just offered him forgiveness of sins. There's something incompatible there. And they start to think, how can you forgive sins? Only God can forgive sins. And Jesus is like, yeah, you're right. And I'm God. And to prove that I have the authority to forgive sins, I say to this man, rise and walk. And this man is healed. And he walks out praising God. And all those people were in astonishment. And there's a couple things I want to point out about this story. That house was filled with people who were curious to hear something Jesus said. They were curious about who Jesus might be, and so they crowded around. They gave him a shot. But the men on the roof, they were courageous enough to meet Jesus in who he was. They didn't just want to hear things. They wanted to meet him. They didn't want to gather just to hear words. They wanted their friend to meet a Savior, to meet a healer, to meet a forgiver, a redeemer. And they did everything they could to lower this man into his presence. And Jesus Christ proves to him and to everyone around that he has everything he'll need. That in him is the ability to wash sin away. In him is the ability to redeem a broken heart. In him is an ability to literally call this dead limbs back to life. To give life to a paralyzed man. That he could go out in freedom, walking and worshiping a new person, a new creation. And as men, we look at that example, and in my own life, I suck at it. I suck at it. Because the minute I have a brother, I have a friend who needs my help, I'll help until it gets difficult. I'll help until I'm no longer comfortable. I'm out on my own. I no longer really have the right words or know what to say, and so I'll stop. But greatness doesn't stop. Greatness presses on. And Jesus Christ has created us to be great men of God with him and with each other. And so we're going to do something in just a minute here. We're going to have some time of worship. And this time here, it's going to be kind of brief, but we're going to bring up the band real quick. And I want to do something very kind of challenging. I've been through a lot of my own life, a lot of my own sins. I've chased at a lot of empty cisterns. And as a result of it, I dealt with a lot of addictions. I dealt with a lot of self-hatred. If you've ever gotten up in the morning and looked in the mirror and despised the person you saw, I know what that's like. If you ever looked in the mirror completely filled with despair, thinking you will never change, I know what that's like. If you ever got up and agreed with every lie from the pits of hell that said you are a pervert, you are distorted, you are addicted, and you will never break free from this, I know what that's like. If you've ever been told by a person or by a voice in your head that you are not good enough, you are not worthy enough, and you will never be enough, I know what that's like. If you've looked in the mirror and seen anything but the man you know your heart wants to be, I know what that's like. And so in a moment of vulnerability and uncomfortability, I'm going to give those of us in this room who have felt that before, who have looked in the mirror and said, man, like there's got to be something more to my manhood. I want to be a greater man than what I've settled for. I want to be a man that strives for greatness. I want to be a man who's willing to turn away from the things of the world to embrace who I am as an authentic man. Standing up against culture and dying to myself for the good of others. If one of those things, any one of those things, even just the littlest bit of one of those things resonates in your heart, these next few moments are for you. And what we're simply going to do is just have a few moments of prayer. I'm going to ask that if that is you, after we make the sign of the cross, if there is just a little bit in your heart that says, man, I want to be more of a man than what I've settled for. I want to be great rather than what I've settled for. I want to be like Christ rather than what I've settled for. I'm just going to invite you after you make the sign of the cross to stand and to enter this time of prayer boldly and courageously. I'm not talking about creeping to the front door of the house where Jesus is and just kind of squeaking around. I'm talking about boldly and courageously, desperately ripping off the roof of your heart to allow Christ in. To sing out with every bit of passion, every bit of brokenness, every bit of hurt you have in desperation for our God. Because I guarantee you there is no one who wants you to be the man you were created to be more than Jesus Christ. And there is no one who can make you the man you want to be other than Jesus Christ.